More attempted assassination attempts. Meta could lose Instagram. And Harvard loses $2.2 billion in federal funding. Wait, why is a private school getting taxpayer funding? That and more on this week's America Uncovered headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. Let's start off with some positivity this week. A pet tortoise that went missing after an outbreak of tornadoes in Mississippi last month was safely returned to its family. Not only is this a heartwarming story, but a tortoise being blown away by a tornado and then learning there's no place like home gives me an idea for another story. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Secret of Oz. It's the crossover we need, nay, deserve. Now that we've got a nice story under our belts and are feeling good, at least 2 people have been killed and 6 injured after a gunman opened fire at Florida State University. Now you see why I started off with the tortoise story. Whenever I say, let's start off with some positivity this week, brace yourself, because it's about to get darker than Justin Trudeau's face on Halloween. Police shot and injured the gunman, who was taken to a hospital in custody. The gunman was identified as Phoenix Eichner, a student at FSU, who was also the son of a sheriff's deputy and a member of the local sheriff's office youth advisory council. Hopefully not anymore. And of course, immediately the internet exploded with people trying to figure out the shooter's political affiliation. That's where we are as a society. I'm so very tired. So, why did he open fire? Was it because he didn't like the school? Was it because Florida gonna Florida? I don't know. But one professor there told the New York Times, this is the second one since I've been here, referring to a 2014 shooting at the same campus. This is tragic. But it presents us with an obvious solution to end all of these school shootings. Ban schools. In other shooting-related news, a 17-year-old teenager in Wisconsin has been charged with killing his parents as part of a plot to assassinate Donald Trump. It just keeps getting darker. The teen identified himself as a member of the Order of the Nine Angels, which the FBI describes as a cult with neo-Nazi ideology that advocates for the use of violence and terrorism to overthrow governments and destroy modern civilization. His plan was to murder his parents, gain funding from the inheritance, and use this to obtain items needed to assassinate Trump, with the idea that it would kick off a race war which would destroy modern civilization. Question mark profit? I haven't seen a more poorly thought out plan involving rash decisions, gaping plot holes, and parent murder since the finale of White Lotus, Justice for Chelsea. Speaking of mentally unwell people plotting to assassinate politicians, probably not a good sign I can use that as a segue, a Pennsylvania man was arrested and charged with setting a fire in the governor's mansion, forcing Governor Josh Shapiro and his family to flee the residence in their pajamas in the middle of the night. Of course, with this being a seemingly politically motivated attack, speculation quickly swirled over whether or not the suspect was a Democrat or a Republican. The suspect reportedly made anti-Joe Biden posts on his social media, but was also not a Trump supporter, though this photo was edited. Here's the real photo, which was posted on X alongside evidence indicating that he was a socialist who hated all politicians. So, a socialist. Authorities suspect the man is mentally ill, but given his tendency towards political independence, how crazy could this guy be? Okay, I stand corrected. This guy is visibly insane. He looks like a malnourished Unabomber if the Unabomber's manifesto was written in severed doll hands. Thankfully, this next story will be completely different. It's about a mentally unwell person potentially trying to assassinate healthcare executives. Variety is the spice of life. An intruder at the United Healthcare headquarters was detained with more than a dozen law enforcement vehicles arriving at the scene. A gun was found in the front seat of the intruder's car, and the man's mother said he planned on shooting his way into the building because he wanted to make a statement. He planned on shooting his way into the building but left his gun in the car? Some people, I swear, they'd lose their head if it wasn't attached to them in an open carry state. This comes mere months after United Healthcare's former CEO, Brian Thompson, was murdered, with the suspect Luigi Mangione becoming a bit of a folk hero and sex symbol, having the most famous eyebrow since Eugene Levy. Given the amount of positive reactions to Luigi, not that one, there you go. Could this be just the first in a string of potential copycat-style attacks? If so, given how much this has been memed, I wouldn't be surprised if a future copycat killer dresses up as another famous Italian plumber, leading to Mario's PR agent putting out a statement from him saying, "It's not the me." And after the break, is Meta too big? That's a trick question. Of course it is. Welcome back. Let's start off with some positivity. A free service called Fido Alert that acts like an Amber Alert for pets has already reunited 40,000 animals with their owners, which is so heartwarming and uplifting. Archaeologists found an ancient altar in Guatemala they say was used for human sacrifices, especially of children. Man, that's even darker than Justin Trudeau's face on Halloween during a lunar eclipse. But before you call such a practice barbaric, quit being so xenophobic. Because as one archaeologist says, it was a practice. It's not that they were violent. It was their way of connecting with the celestial bodies. Wow. Who knew that Casey Anthony was so in touch with her spirituality? But on the bright side, at least we don't live in a culture where children are used as props and pushing people's ideology. Man, that would be depressing, huh? Comedian Bill Maher was invited to dinner with President Trump at the White House, despite his constantly attacking Trump's policies on his show. Apparently, the dinner was organized by their mutual friend, Kid Rock. Afterwards, Maher called the president gracious and measured.
He's much more self-aware than he lets on in public. Look, I get it. It doesn't matter who he is at a private dinner with a comedian. It matters who he is on the world stage. I'm just taking as a positive that this person exists, because everything I've ever not liked about him was, I swear to God, absent, at least on this night with this guy.
Wow. Trump actually connecting with a prominent critic of his and the two finding a way to be civil and recognize humanity in each other. Maybe this could be the start of something, or not, because some of Maher's fans were pretty upset by this and accused him of not being funny. Could Bill Maher be on his way to joining other lifelong Democrats turned off by where the Democratic Party is heading and openly loving Donald Trump? He could join the ranks of RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, and of course, Donald Trump. A landmark antitrust case against Meta is underway that could force Mark Zuckerberg to sell Instagram, since it accuses him of crushing competition by buying Instagram and WhatsApp, to which I say, yes. On the other hand, if I were one of Zuckerberg's lawyers, I'd point to the fact that he made Threads rather than buying Twitter as proof he learned his lesson and won't buy his competition anymore. If only Threads weren't so terrible, it made everyone appreciate X even more. Bad business move, Zuck. Maybe that's why Elon Musk stopped wanting to cage fight him. Migrant crossings through the once overrun Darien Gap at the southern border have plummeted 99% under Trump's border crackdown. This isn't just good news for people who want a secure border, it's actually good news for migrants themselves, as this area was dangerous to cross, and a lot of migrants got raped or murdered there. Though, to be fair, the gangs doing the raping and murdering weren't violent, they were just connecting with the celestial bodies. The Trump administration has frozen $2.2 billion in federal grants to Harvard. Immediately, you may be wondering, why is a private university that has over $50 billion in endowments receiving funding from taxpayers? What kind of reverse Robin Hood is this, where he steals from the middle class and gives it to a daycare for Nepo babies? Well, apparently endowments are long-term investments that can't always be directly assessed. So Harvard primarily keeps on chugging with money from other sources, including federal research grants. Running a top-tier university costs a lot, like $6.4 billion in 2024, a lot. So the loss of $2.2 billion a year isn't exactly chump change. So why is the Trump administration doing this? Well, they made a list of demands to Harvard, which included curbing anti-Semitism on campus, as well as DEI practices. Harvard refused these demands, citing free speech. In a letter to the Harvard community, Harvard President Alan Garber wrote, no government, regardless of which party is in power, should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they can admit and hire, and which areas of study and inquiry they can pursue. True, although is it really dictating which areas of study and inquiry the university can pursue to simply say, we're not going to give you money anymore? Given the perspectives from both sides, this brings up a few questions. What role does the government have in dictating the policies of universities that receive federal funding, even in a roundabout way? At what point does free speech turn into illegal actions? Is it seriously free speech to prevent this guy from going to his classes? And most importantly, how the heck is Harvard even spending so many billions of dollars? Administrative costs. But don't worry, we'll be fine. Because according to the White House, and this is real, our technologies permit us to manipulate time and space. They leave distance annihilated, cause things to grow, and improve productivity. Well, folks, you know what that means. Trump is now in possession of the orb. And before you go, be sure to check out this other episode of America Uncovered recommended by the algorithm. It knows you better than you know yourself. Invasive? Yes. Informative? Also yes. So, click away. And as always, support America Uncovered and screw YouTube by subscribing to our new website, americauncovered.tv. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thank you for watching America Uncovered.